All right, stop whatever you're doing, because today we're going back to 1996. And we're talking about one of the most explosive, emotionally raw, unapologetically bold heist films ever made. Set It Off. 4 black women, 4 impossible situations, 1 decision that changed everything. You've seen it. You love it. You've quoted it. Maybe you've cried at that ending more times than you want to admit. And honestly, same. But here's the thing, and this is what I need you to understand before we go a single second further. There is so much about this movie that you don't know. And I'm not talking about trivia that doesn't matter. I'm talking about facts that will completely change how you see every single scene. Casting decisions that almost broke this film before it started. A soundtrack story so wild it almost didn't happen. A real-life incident at movie theaters that had people actually scared to go watch it. And, here's one I'll put up front because you deserve it, the script was rejected. Multiple times. For a reason so backwards, so infuriating, it will make your jaw hit the floor. So let's count them down. 15 facts. 0 filler. Buckle up. Fact number 1. The script was rejected because of black men. Let's start with the one that will have you pressing pause, staring at the wall, and questioning everything. Screenwriter Takashi Bufford, the man who wrote Set It Off, pitched this script to New Line Cinema. And they said no. He pitched it again. They said no. He pitched it a 3rd time. 3 times. 3 rejections for one of the most iconic films of the 90s. Why? Bufford revealed in an interview with blackfilm.com that New Line Cinema executives flat out told him they didn't believe this movie would work because, and brace yourself, they thought black males would not support a film with gunslinging black females. Read that back. They looked at a script about 4 brilliant, desperate, deeply human women and said, "Men won't watch this." Now let's talk about what actually happened. Set It Off opened at number 1 at the box office on its opening day, November 6, 1996. It ultimately grossed over $41 million worldwide against a $9 million budget. And Bufford himself noted, that obviously proved not to be true. Not just proved wrong, proved catastrophically, historically wrong. The question I want to leave you with on this one: how many other classic films never got made because of that exact same backwards thinking? That thought should haunt you a little. Fact number 2. The writer wrote it for women he'd never met. Here's where it gets almost supernatural. Takashi Bufford was writing the script with 2 specific people in mind for the lead roles: Jada Pinkett and Queen Latifah. 2 very specific, very real, very famous women. The catch? He had never met either of them in his life. He wrote characters inspired by them, shaped around how he imagined they would inhabit these roles. Essentially built a film on a vision and a prayer. And then, somehow, both women ended up in the movie. Now the story gets deeper. According to reports, it was actually Jada Pinkett herself who encouraged director F. Gary Gray to cast Queen Latifah as Cleo. She went to bat for Latifah. She pushed for it. 2 women who were written for this story by a man who'd never met them. And one of them helped make sure the other got cast. Some things are just meant to be. You could call it coincidence. But in Hollywood, where everything fights against you at every step, that kind of alignment feels like something bigger. Fact number 3. Queen Latifah's audition was literally legendary. We need to talk about the audition room moment that people are still talking about. Queen Latifah walked into that casting session for the role of Cleo, a rough, boisterous, unapologetically bold, butch lesbian who lives life at full volume. And when she finished her read, she looked at everyone in the room and said, dead seriously, "I am this." That was it? That was the audition? Casting director Roby Reed, the same brow the same legendary casting director who worked with Spike Lee on films like Do the Right Thing and Jungle Fever, had actually first noticed Latifah years earlier when she opened for Ziggy Marley and the Wailers at a summer concert in New York. Reed said she saw potential right then and there. She brought Latifah into Spike Lee's world first, and when Set It Off came around, she made sure she was in the room. But it was that audition, that declaration, that sealed it. And here's something even more remarkable. Latifah herself has said that Cleo is not just a role she played. It is her favorite role of all time. Of everything she's ever done. Think about that. The Queen Latifah, the Grammy winner, the Oscar nominee, the woman who became a household name in music and film. And her favorite thing she ever did was bank robbery in South Central LA in 1996. That tells you everything. Fact number 4. Kimberly Elise was discovered at a restaurant. This one is the kind of story that makes you think fate is real. Kimberly Elise, the woman who would break every heart in the movie as Titian, the sweet, devastated single mother, had 0 film credits. None. She was a theater actress, and she was discovered not at an audition, not at a showcase, not through an agent. She was discovered at a restaurant, where she was a waitress. Producer Dale Pollock noticed her there, presumably just doing her job, and saw something. That encounter led to her being brought in to audition for Set It Off. And when she did audition, the story goes that her performance was so raw, so emotionally electric, that the producers were stunned. Think about that for a second. This woman was carrying plates, refilling drinks, doing what she had to do to get by. And then suddenly she was in one of the most important black films of an entire decade. Kimberly Elise herself has spoken about how real that role was to her personally. She said, "I was probably the only character in the film that was actually living the story, being completely broke." She wasn't acting the financial desperation from a comfortable distance. She was living adjacent to it. And it shows in every frame. There's something about that which hits different, doesn't it? Fact number 5. The script was being rewritten daily on set. Let's get into the chaos of actually making this movie, because it was controlled madness at the highest level. Vivica A. Fox was the last of the 4 leads to be cast, and when she arrived on set, she found a situation that would make many actors spiral. The script was being thrown out and rewritten page by page, almost every day. Fox described it directly. "Originally, with the script, we were throwing out pages daily, like, no. But that's what you do when you have a good director who knows what he has to turn in. We were given the freedom with him to create things, and dialogue that would make sense." So what you see on screen, those moments that feel so lived in, so natural, so real that you forget these women are acting. A lot of that came from the actresses themselves. The characters were shaped with direct input from the cast. Some lines were improvised and ad-libbed right there in the Beverly Boulevard production office. Director F. Gary Gray had a very specific process for building that chemistry. He told the cast, "Drop the script. Go to dinner together. Go to movies. Just be with each other." He wanted them to stop performing friendship and start having it. And the results speak for themselves. That sisterhood you feel watching this movie? It was real. Fact number 6. The entire film was shot in just 39 days. Here's a question for you. What's your favorite scene in Set It Off? Is it the rooftop scene? The Godfather parody around the conference table? Cleo's final heartbreaking stand? The chase? The moment T dies in Stoney's arms? Now consider this. All of it, every single scene, was shot in just 39 days. 39 days. Under a $9 million budget. On location in actual Los Angeles neighborhoods. not on a comfortable Hollywood backlot. Cinematographer Mark Ryshavsky used handheld camera work to give the whole film that raw, documentary energy, that feeling that you are watching something real unfold, that you could be standing on that street corner yourself. Director F. Gary Gray came into this with incredible momentum. This was only his second feature film. His first? Friday. Also a classic. Also shot lean and fast. New Line Cinema had selected him specifically because of how Friday performed de bonne forme, and Gray arrived knowing exactly what he needed to do. Make something that felt alive, make something that pulsed with urgency, and do it before the clock ran out. 39 days for a film that people are still talking about nearly 30 years later. That is filmmaking under pressure, turning into art. Fact number 7. Dr. Dre had a cameo. Let's take a moment to appreciate this hidden gem. If you weren't paying close attention, and honestly, most people weren't, you may have completely missed that Dr. Dre appears in Set It Off. He plays a character named Black Sam. This was 1996. Dr. Dre had just released The Chronic a few years earlier and had recently departed Death Row Records. He wasn't a stranger to film cameos, but this one is particularly interesting given the cultural context. Set It Off was deep in the world of South Central LA, hip-hop culture, and the economic realities of black urban life, the same world that Dre's music had been speaking to for years. It's a blink-and-you'll-miss-it appearance, but it's in there. Which raises the obvious question. On your last rewatch, did you spot him? If not, now you know what you're looking for. And yes, you're going to go back and check. It's okay. We've all been there. Fact number 8. The soundtrack was originally written for Mick Jagger. This one right here. Get ready. The soundtrack to Set It Off is legendary. It hit number 4 on the Billboard 200, number 3 on the top R&B/hip-hop albums chart, went platinum in just 6 days after the album was certified in November 1996, and produced 7, count them 7, charting singles. And the crown jewel of that soundtrack? En Vogue's Don't Let Go, Love. The song that became inescapable. The song that peaked at number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 and stayed in that position for 4 consecutive weeks. Number 1 on the Hot R&B/hip-hop songs chart, a Grammy nomination, a Soul Train Award win. Here's the wild part. Don't Let Go, Love, was not originally written for En Vogue or for this film. According to Atlanta production trio Organized Noise, the masterminds behind the track, the song was initially conceived for Mick Jagger of the Rolling Stones. The track that became the anthem of a film about 4 black women robbing banks in Los Angeles was originally meant for a 53-year-old British rock legend. And when it didn't work out for him, it got repurposed, handed to En Vogue, and became one of the defining songs of the entire decade. Also worth noting, this was the final music video featuring all 4 original members of En Vogue together. The group was already facing internal tensions that would soon fracture the lineup. So in a strange, beautiful way, Don't Let Go documented not just the film's themes of sisterhood, it captured the last moment of a real musical sisterhood at its peak. Fact number 9. John C. McGinley trained with a real LAPD detective. The villain of Set It Off, well, depending on how you look at it, is Detective Strode, played by John C. McGinley. The man who hunts these women. The man who, in his single-minded pursuit, becomes the agent of their destruction. The man who fired Frankie in the first place with his cold procedural logic and set the entire chain of events in motion. That portrayal had to feel real, eerily, robotically, systematically real, and McGinley made sure it was. To prepare for the role, he worked extensively with a retired detective from the LAPD. He didn't just study the job, he studied the psychology of the person who does the job, the detachment, the process. The way someone can look at human tragedy and reduce it to a file number. And that's what makes Strode so unsettling, isn't it? He's not a cartoon villain. He's a cog, a very effective, very dangerous cog in a machine that was never built to help people like Frankie, Stoney, Cleo, and T.T. Roger Ebert wrote in his review that the film is not about overt racism. It's about the buried realities of an economic system that expects women to lead lives the system does not allow them to afford. And McGinley's Strode is the human face of that system. Fact number 10. There were real-life incidents of violence at screenings. This is one of the most unsettling facts on this list, and it says something deeply important about the moment this film landed in. When Set It Off opened on November 6, 1996, it opened at number 1 at the box office on its first day. It was a massive success. And yet, according to contemporary reports, there were incidents of violence at some theaters showing the film, including a shooting in Lakewood, California that injured 3 people. To be absolutely clear, the film did not cause violence. Films don't cause violence. But what this tells you is the temperature of the world this movie arrived in. The socio-economic tensions that Set It Off was depicting on screen. The desperation, the systemic failures, the rage. Those things were not fictional problems safely contained behind a movie screen. They were the lived reality of the communities watching this film. And sometimes, that tension followed people out of the theater and into the parking lot. The film was a mirror held up to a world that was still on fire. And not everyone was ready to look. Fact number 11. The original script didn't explain why they robbed banks. Here's a storytelling fact that reveals just how much studio interference can actually, occasionally, improve a film. When Takashi Bufford's original script was finally accepted by New Line Cinema, the studio came back with notes, and not small ones. They felt the script was missing something fundamental. They wanted deeper, more specific explanations for why each of the 4 women turns to bank robbery. What was the inciting injustice? What was the breaking point? In other words, they wanted us to feel the why. Bufford revised. Kate Lanier joined for rewrites, and the final film gave each character a distinct, devastating origin point. Frankie loses her bank job for knowing the face of a robber from her neighborhood, not for doing anything wrong. TT has her child taken away because she can't afford proper child care on her wages. A failure of the system, not of her as a mother. Stoney watches her little brother get shot down by the police. Cleo simply lives in a world that has never offered her a path forward. Individually, each story is heartbreaking. Together, they form an indictment. The studio's intervention, which could easily have been used to water things down or Hollywoodize them, in this case made the film more honest and more devastating. That almost never happens. But it happened here. Fact number 12. New Line Cinema's highest-grossing film of 1996. Let's sit with the numbers for a second because they demand respect. Set It Off was made for $9 million. It grossed over $41.5 million worldwide. That's a return of more than 4.5 times its budget. For a film that was rejected 3 times, that starred 4 black women, in an era when Hollywood routinely dismissed that audience, that was shot in 39 days, in actual LA neighborhoods, without the safety net of a big-budget production. That is extraordinary. But here's the number that really matters. Set It Off was New Line Cinema's highest-grossing film of 1996. Not a superhero movie, not a franchise, not a film starring a then-guaranteed white male movie star. A gritty heist drama about 4 women that Hollywood executives had been convinced would be a commercial failure. And the soundtrack? That 5th best-selling soundtrack album of the entire year of 1996, platinum certified within days of release, 7 charting singles. This movie didn't just succeed, It dominated. And it did it entirely on its own terms. Fact number 13. Vivica Fox got acting tips from Will Smith. Here's the behind-the-scenes connection that feels almost too good to be true. But it's real. 1996 was a massive year for Vivica A. Fox. She starred in Set It Off, yes. But earlier that same year, she'd also appeared in Independence Day, one of the biggest blockbusters of the decade, alongside Will Smith. According to reports, Vivica Fox's preparation for her role as Frankie in Set It Off was reportedly refined with acting tips from her Independence Day co-star Will Smith himself. Think about that dynamic. Here's Will Smith, fresh off the kind of summer blockbuster that breaks box office records, coaching a co-star for a smaller, grittier, character-driven film. And those tips, whatever they were, helped Fox bring a grounded, no-nonsense energy to Frankie that grounded the whole ensemble. 1996, Vivica A. Fox was on an absolute run, and Set It Off was where she proved she wasn't just a blockbuster co-star. She could carry drama, carry weight, carry a character whose fate would devastate you. Fact number 14. The Godfather scene was almost entirely improvised. We need to talk about the conference table scene. You know the one. The four women are in the building they clean at night, sitting around the big conference table like corporate executives, and they start doing Godfather impressions, giving each other mob nicknames, plotting their heist like they're running a crime family. It's electric, it's funny, it's tense, it's weirdly joyful, and it reveals everything about these characters, their humor, their bond, their intelligence, and the specific kind of black working class creativity that turns nothing into something. Here's the thing about that scene. The energy and much of the dialogue was shaped by the actresses themselves in real time. The characters molded with input from the cast, lines born from improvisational work in rehearsals. Also, there's a hidden joke in that scene that most people miss. When Stoney is given the nickname Stoney from the Bronx, it creates a subtle continuity gag. Because earlier in the film, during dinner with Keith, Stoney says she's never been to New York. The mob nicknames are fictional personas. It's a moment of meta-humor tucked inside one of the film's most celebrated scenes. Did you catch that? Be honest in the comments. Fact number 15. The reboot is still coming, and the original cast has thoughts. We have to end here, because this is the story that is still unfolding right now. Almost from the day Set It Off ended, people have been asking, is there a sequel? A reboot? Can we go back? The original cast's answer has been, almost uniformly, absolutely not. Don't touch it. Vivica A. Fox. It's a classic, leave it alone, there's absolutely no reason to try to redo it. Jada Pinkett Smith. It's a classic, it's done. Sometimes you gotta let a classic be a classic. Queen Latifah, whose character Cleo dies in the original, reportedly joked that she now has a no-death clause in her movie contracts because of what happened to Cleo. She learned her lesson the hard way. Never let them kill you in the first film. And then there's the reboot situation. It's been swirling since 2019, when The Hollywood Reporter linked Issa Rae's name to a potential reimagining. Rae herself quickly shut it down. I would never remake a classic. But as of 2025, the project is still in active development at New Line Cinema. A new writer, C.A. Johnson, was brought in to polish the screenplay. Issa Rae is reportedly still attached to both star in and produce. So the question hangs in the air. Can any version of Set It Off, no matter how talented the new cast, no matter how carefully constructed the script, ever carry what the original carried? Or is it simply, as Vivica Fox put it, something that should be left alone? Time and the box office will tell. And there you have it. 15 facts about Set It Off that you probably didn't know walking in here. A script rejected 3 times. a cast assembled through fate and sheer determination, a soundtrack hit that was meant for Mick Jagger, a film shot in 39 days that became the highest-grossing movie of its distributor's entire year, and 4 performances: Jada Pinkett Smith, Queen Latifah, Vivica A. Fox, and Kimberly Elise, that are still studied, still celebrated, still felt nearly 30 years later. Set It Off is not just a movie. It is a document of a specific moment in Black America. It is a declaration that Black women's stories are worth telling, worth watching, worth fighting through 3 rejections to put on screen. It is proof that when you give talented people a real story to tell, the audience will show up. Before you go, I have to ask you, and I genuinely want to know this: what's your favorite moment in Set It Off? Is it Cleo's final stand? The rooftop scene? The moment Frankie turns a gun on Detective Strode and reminds him exactly what he helped create? Drop it in the comments. Let's talk about this movie the way it deserves to be talked about. If this video gave you something new to think about, smash that like button. It tells the algorithm that this kind of content matters and helps more people find it. Subscribe if you haven't already, because we go this deep on classics every single week. And go back and rewatch Set It Off tonight. You know you want to. See you in the next one.